Last night we did a roundtable of 7 or 8 fans joining to talking about the movie. Um, I was using a new software, so I was running a little bit late. So you're going to miss the first minute of our discussion, but the rest of it got captured. So this is the discussion. Uh, I didn't edit, I didn't clean it up. This is just the discussion of different fans sharing their thoughts about the movie. I'm thinking about doing more of these. So if this is something you'd be interested in doing, send me an email, setlustingbruce@gmail.com, and I'll tell you how you can sign up for free to be notified if I'm going live for discussions. But now here is our discussion of Springsteen, Deliver Me from Nowhere.
And honestly, as I was watching it, I was just so transported into my childhood and growing up with a single mom and seeing that guy come into your mom's life that you know is going to absolutely break her heart. But as a kid, you have this sixth sense of the good ones who are going to break their heart because they don't mean it, and the bad ones who are going to break their heart because they just don't care. And
Yeah.
that to me was like the real touching piece about the film, whether it was Springsteen's relationship with the romantic interest and her kid, or Springsteen reflecting on his time with his dad. It's the idea that, we're hurt people trying to exist in this world, and you can't really do so without causing your scars to others. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty. That's, the cracks that get the lights in, to steal another songwriter's phrase. And I'm not the biggest fan of Nebraska, but I thought the film did a wonderful job
Good.
just talking about the artistry behind it, that it wasn't an accident or some kind of magic in a bottle.
Yeah. So I'm going to go around the table, let everyone say a few things, and then we'll kind of have a discussion. Arlen, I loved your review. You were not as glowing as I was. You talked about the good. So you want to share a little bit, Arlen? You're muted. You're muted, Arlen. There we go. All right. Say again.
Okay,
There it goes.
can you
So
hear
say
me?
again, my friend. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I love what Sylvan just said in such a passionate, eloquent way because the very thing she loved about the film, which centered more on the love story with the single mom, is exactly what I wish we did not focus too much on because number one, I understand why the love story was put in. I understand why it was a composite of Bruce's multiple dalliances or whatever he had relationships back then. But this movie was about the making of Nebraska, the album. And as a diehard fan of the music itself, I would have wanted more, even if it meant adding another half hour to the movie. Keep the love story, fine. But there wasn't enough of the dramatization behind these incredible songs. They only spent time on the title cut and on what was the other song? And Mansion on a Hill, the beautiful flashback of the kids running in the fields.
Yeah.
But as I said in my review that JJ cited, that I posted on Facebook, you know, where was the dramatization of Atlantic City, the Chicken Man being blown up in Philly, and why
Yes.
that impacted Bruce enough to write a song about it? Where,
Yeah.
where was another beautiful black and white flashback to used cars, considering the car is one of Bruce's major motifs?
Yeah.
Where, where was the dramatization of State Trooper Bruce driving down the highway trying to find music and everything's talk shows.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, the greatest song on Nebraska is My Father's House,
Yeah.
which is all about this incredible, harrowing dream he has of being chased by a wolf. Can you imagine that incredible kid actor who was the real star of the movie I write
I
about in
did see that. You mentioned that. I
Can you
agree.
imagine him in a black and white slow motion or whatever flashback with a wolf chasing him and then coming to my father's house standing hard and bright? The
Yeah,
job of filmmakers is to visualize what Bruce so beautifully wrote. What does that mean to see a house standing hard and bright?
yeah,
The rest of the song is a masterpiece. When he goes up in real life to the house and a woman I didn't recognize, told
yeah,
me, but I cited Twin Peaks, The Return, the final scene in
yeah,
David Lynch's television masterpiece, where Laura Palmer, the living Laura Palmer, basically goes up to the house where
yeah,
she once lived. To me, I wish I could ask David Lynch if he was inspired by my father's house. The point is, they did not visualize that.
yeah. I'm gonna
What?
get a couple more people's thoughts, Arlen, though. Save there. I want to hear
Yes.
more. I do think it's always interesting because it it's what we want to see, not necessarily the filmmaker. But I thought those are really good points. Laura, how about you? Thoughts? And I'm gonna get to everyone, I promise.
Hello, everybody. My thoughts. So I guess I came in with this mindset of I don't want to find things to be negative about, which I get it. You shouldn't like blindly accept media, but I was just like, I don't know. I love Bruce. I'm not looking for a reason to be negative. And like, I study policy and social work. My literal like path is like doing deep analysis. So sometimes I just need a break from that.
Yes, I know that
So,
feeling.
Yeah, but then why are you
um,
here if not to discuss
No,
the
no, no. She's
film?
sharing her
Yeah,
feelings. Yes. No,
okay.
I get you.
no, I wasn't, but, so just, so I don't have too many negative things to say about it. I mean, overall, I loved it, and I feel like I would have loved it like anyways. There were like I think that the actors were incredible. At first, like I've seen the movie multiple times. It took a while for me to get used to Jeremy Allen White as Bruce. Just like it felt like at times, oh, like that I wasn't really seeing Bruce.
Yeah,
And then some observations is like the I was intrigued by like the vision that Cooper had because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, if I was directing the film, I would have done it differently.
yeah,
Like I would have focused also on his aunt and grandparents, for example. I would have focused on like the historical context of the times. Like the book talks a whole lot about Reagan and the
yeah,
recession and how that really like was a form of like economic
yeah,
trauma during the time and really set up the scene for hopelessness. So like
yeah,
I feel like the film kind of um it doesn't it just focus on Bruce's internal and like personal life, and I feel like I'm a social work student, so you always like stress that the person and the environment
yeah,
they play with each other and interact with each other, and I feel like that context would have been nicer. It would have been how I would have done it, and
yeah,
also more of like reason reasoning into like his like creative process. By that I mean sometimes the build up for certain scenes or parts of the plot were
yeah.
sudden.
Hmm.
I get it, you only have a certain amount of time.
And it is a long film. It's 2 hours. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, Oppenheimer was like three and a
yeah,
half if they
exactly.
really
Yeah,
wanted to.
yeah. I know that we would want that. Okay, I'm going to get back to you in a minute. Ed, how about you? Some quick thoughts?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Oh,
can.
great. Hi, everybody. And how you doing, Jesse?
Good.
Um, So this was a movie that it's kind of like you walk into it, and like we're all Springsteen fans, so it's like, add a star if you're a Springsteen fan.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing here is I'm going to take away that star, and I'm going to say that I really like this movie, but I can understand the mixed reviews. I
Yeah.
mean, I found it very slow in getting started, and I understand. I was very, interested in it because I already know so much about Bruce, and I wanted to see how this was done. But I can understand how other people, didn't quite, enjoy it as much, and waiting for things to like pick up. And
Yeah.
what I wanted to compare this movie to, and I bet some of you others did too, was to the movie about Bob Dylan, A
Hmm.
Complete. And I remember walking out of that movie thinking, this is Academy Award material. And I was blown away by Timothy Chalamet's performance. I
Yeah.
never been a Timothy Chalamet fan. I thought, my God, that kid is good. I didn't have the same reaction with this movie.
Mm.
Um, but that's okay because I think a couple of things. And it's interesting because Bruce was heavily involved in the making of this movie. He was there. He was there. Practically looking over Jeremy Allen White's shoulder while they were making this film. As far as we know, Dylan had nothing to do
Yeah.
with that other movie. He must have permitted it or allowed it or had some
Yeah.
permission for it, but he was not at all actively involved in it.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, we know that what was depicted in this film was probably fairly pretty, at least from Bruce's perspective, honest and consistent and accurate, at least in an artistic sense. We don't know that about the other movie,
Yeah.
but but I think I'm coming back to it. I think that's okay, right?
Yeah.
That's okay because Nebraska is not for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's the move that album was made for people that really appreciated what Bruce was trying to
Yeah.
say at that time and what he's been saying to us all along. This movie's kind of like that too. This movie was for us in many
Yeah.
ways.
I wrote that in my review, and when people asked me about it, I said it's good. It's great from my perspective, but I do get that. Separate.
Yeah, yeah,
You got. You get,
I totally agree with that, and
yeah.
I think it took a tremendous amount of courage for Bruce to basically authorize this particular moment in his life when he's at his weakest and he's at he's absolutely
Yeah.
feels defeated and
Yeah.
lost, and there even is a hint that maybe he's considering suicide.
Yeah.
And I think this movie will probably reach people that
Yeah.
are having troubles like and so this
Yeah.
movie will serve other purposes. Like some of his
Yeah.
songs serve other purposes than they were originally
Yeah.
written for. I think people that are suffering from challenges, mental
Yeah.
issues, depression, extreme depression, will find something in this film that will help them and that they'll enjoy. But that's okay. I mean, every
Yeah.
movie doesn't have to be a home run, and
Yeah.
those are my thoughts anyway. So I
Okay.
liked it, but
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
of course I liked it.
Repka.
Um,
Let's.
is it
What?
gonna
What?
is it gonna be is it gonna be Academy Award material? I think the acting was great. I think
Yeah.
that in terms of Academy Award stuff, I think the two actors here, Jeremy
Yeah. We'll
Strong
see.
and Jeremy Allen White, showed up great, and they
I
have.
wouldn't be surprised if the guy who played his dad, I'm drawing a blank on his name, might
Oh
get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Stephen Graham.
Yeah. Stephen
who
Graham.
was in Pirates
Yeah.
of the Caribbean? He was one of the pirates in the Pirates of the Caribbean
He
movie.
was. He was Al Capone in
Is Al
Boardwalk
Capone?
Empire.
Yep, in
Yeah.
Boardwalk Empire too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Ripka.
Can
I know I'm butchering your name,
can
but
I say
please.
something? Oh,
Yeah.
No, it's
Just
all
a
right.
minute, Arlen.
My username is my last name, but my name is Starla.
Okay,
Um,
Starla.
uh, I overall enjoyed the film for what it was. I've
Yeah.
seen it twice, so I could the first time around I just watched it to view it and just take away from it what I would
Yeah.
anytime I would watch any other movie. And then the second time I kind of looked at it more and, dissected it, you could say.
Yeah.
But one of my largest takeaways from it is kind of outside of the movie itself, that not a lot of, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
security.
All right, somebody's smoking. Give me 1 second, please.
It keeps muting me. Arlen, you said you had a quick comment before I got a couple other people on stage.
Yeah. I just want to say that this idea that, oh, it was a look at Bruce's life when he was at his lowest, and depressed and suicidal. Well, yeah, but so is Van Gogh. The real takeaway is that artists, even when they're at their lowest, at the brink of suicide, can still create great art. In other words, through all of this, he wrote and recorded those songs.
Yeah.
He
And
wasn't just, curled up in a fetal position, crying his eyes out, which if you've
no.
been depressed, that's what, we can
Yeah.
do. But that,
Like the
that to me
lines
is the
from
real
Dancing in the
triumph
Dark, right? Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Nebraska itself.
Yeah.
Well, that's when
Uh,
great art often is created, actually,
yeah,
when people are at their
exactly.
lowest
Yeah.
and are feeling the emotions the most strongly. So, yeah.
Good. All right. Trek 696. Unmute and share.
That's me. Jesse, you'll remember me as David and as Laura said.
Yes. Hey, David, how you doing?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Good. So everyone, David is the one who was a history professor and joined us on Inyo. And I was like, boy, did I get lucky. So yes, please, David, share your thoughts.
Well, I'm not a history professor. I do have a PhD in history.
Yeah.
And I went on a long-winded ramble during Inyo about the California water wars.
Yeah.
I've seen Deliver Me from Nowhere once. I went to it with my daughter Laura. I think she was on her sixth viewing. The folks in the movie theater all know her by first name. She's a regular there. Well, my feeling about the movie, I enjoyed it very much. I felt that there were basically two things that it was trying to address that are in some ways linked, but which it wasn't able to fully develop either. And by that, I mean the making of Nebraska, the album, and Bruce's psychological struggles. Um, Obviously, they come together in certainly in some of the Nebraska songs. But as Laura said earlier, if you want to get a real feeling for what Bruce's psychology was, you have to bring in other characters from his childhood and not pin it simply all on the dad. One question that came to my mind as I watched this is why did Bruce go back to that part of New Jersey? Parents are gone. He could have gone anywhere if he wanted to crash for 6 or 12 months and be out of sight, but he chose to go back there. The other part of it is the making of Nebraska. And I agree very much with what was said earlier about wanting a deeper dive into other songs on Nebraska. And also, as Laura brought in, the cultural and historical context of the times needed to
Yeah.
be brought in more. I remember it was right after I graduated from college. That was a really dark time, as I was trying to explain
Yeah.
to Laura.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get that. Yeah. Mr. Willis, Janet Willis, you haven't spoke yet. And then I'm going to go back to you. There you go,
There
sir.
we go. Can you hear me, Jesse?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Glad to be here tonight. I'm calling in from Memphis, Tennessee.
Very nice.
Just saw the film last night for the
Yeah.
first time. I will go back to see it again. I have mixed feelings about it. I've been a fan for almost 50 years. I'm glad the movie exists. I'm glad that the movie was ambitious enough to go into the areas that it did. But as several of you, especially Arlen, has mentioned, I felt there were so many missed opportunities. I wanted Nebraska fleshed out so much more. As Arlen mentioned, there are so many songs that you, as a fan, wanted to feel the creative process behind those songs. And the kid actor, mesmerizing. He was so good. I would have loved to have seen more with him, more with the family, the extended family. I enjoyed it, and I'm impressed that to me it is a very non-commercial film. I do not see this film making a lot of money. So I'm glad that it does exist, but I was wanting more.
Yeah, I get that. By the way, Rolling Stone's podcast that came out today has an interview with Stephen Grant, right? Yeah, and he talks about working with the kid, and and he they talked about how good he was. I agree with Arlen. I think the other person, I thought was, yeah, I thought he was just a really shine on that, and their scenes together were really strong. Um,
Can I pop in here?
yeah, please, Arlen, go for it.
First of all, the kid is from my hometown, Fair Lawn, New Jersey, North
Yay!
Bergen County. Okay, I want to answer the point about that was brought up just before by Laura's dad um, about what was the question you asked? Shit, I just lost my train of thought. About
Uh,
you didn't know why. Oh, he
the political thing, or
no
no?
about the therapy.
Why he stayed in his hometown?
No,
Yeah, why
why
did
he
he go
kept
back?
going. Oh, I want to say why he kept going back. According to his biography, it's been printed in many places. What he said to the psychiatrist was, I keep being drawn back to driving past my childhood house. And the psychiatrist said, basically, you're trying to go back and fix something that was broken. And
Yeah,
Bruce goes, yeah, I think so. And the psychiatrist goes, but you can't. And I
yeah,
think Bruce ended the reminiscence by saying he still drives past the house.
yeah,
Upset.
yeah. And I'm thinking of the Beatles line too, where I want to way back home, and that Starlight, is the smoke alarm now off? And do you want to share?
Yeah, they stopped trying to silence me now. So,
Okay, great.
um, overall, for what the concept of the film and the making of Nebraska itself, fascinating. How he came about to do it. That itself as a film, I think, is a great concept, and that's what I enjoyed about it. But I
Yeah,
do agree to the certain points that I think if you're right, it was already a 2-hour film. If they wanted to flesh it out more, they could have. It's not like it was much shorter before and they really packed it all in. And I think that, yeah, illustrating My Father's House specifically as well, and perhaps also State Trooper, could have helped to flesh out a lot of the raw emotions that he was feeling at the time.
yeah. And I
And
go ahead.
yeah, another point to that is that if we had seen that, and also in particular with younger Bruce, I think it would have created a larger emotional connection between his childhood traumas and how he's still dealing with that. He didn't go into this wanting to produce an album; he's just spitting out ideas. But it
Yeah,
really, what comes out of that is his emotional rawness and his memories, getting involved with a single mother,
yeah,
knowing that it's not going to work out, but he's waiting till last minute to, apologize and come to terms with himself. And that still doesn't happen until he's already made the album fully. He's still not all right after he's produced it. And I think if there was that stronger emotional connection and bond that allows the audience who probably doesn't know a lot of the music off the record to visualize the lyrics, I think that would have created just an overall better film in general.
so I'd like everyone's thoughts on this. I bought into the romance, but even though I knew that, that this was a composite, I thought the actress who played Faye was very captivating. She was, there was charisma, there was chemistry, and like I said, and I mentioned, if this had been a fictional film, I would have been pulling for them to get together. I would have pulled for our main character to get his shit together and, realize he's got a good thing there, but you can't. And I think you could also absolutely make the argument that is a little too on the nose, like, oh, he has to love himself before he can love other people? Maybe, but it worked for me. Skip, you hadn't said anything in a while. Thank you for giving everyone else a chance. So let's start with you. Thoughts on the Faye and the love relationship?
The actress, Odessa Young, she did a very nice performance. I thought she was great, actually.
Yeah,
I had no expect like everybody on the call here, we all know the story, right? Like,
yeah,
but, I went to the movie with my wife. She's like maybe Jesse, like your wife, she
yeah,
tolerates Springsteen because she went
yeah,
with me to the concert and all
yeah.
this, but like she doesn't know anything about Nebraska. I had to explain to her. We went into the movie and I said, if you want me to explain anything to you, I'll explain anything you want right now. Otherwise, I'll explain it after if you want, or not.
That's
You
what I
let me
kinda
know what you
I
want.
went by myself for that very reason. I know Linda would be like, "What? What? What?"
Yeah.
Yes.
So I thought that she did a great job. I mean, like I said, we're all fans here, so we know that she's a composite, and we know that the relationship doesn't go anywhere. So, like, I wasn't invested in their relationship, but I did appreciate. I mean, she's there to be like an instrument to further show us like his isolation, like
Yeah,
he goes to New Jersey, lives in the house by himself, he doesn't want to be with people. This is what depressed people do, right? they
yeah,
they they go inward, and he's trying not to go inward. He goes to the bar band, he performs at the Stone Pony, and he's trying to be with her, but he can't. It's an instrument to like show us that part of him.
yeah.
That's the way I
S
looked at it.
Sylvan.
Yeah, I guess I had no problem with the idea of like knowing that they were going to end up together. It wasn't about that Hollywood romance of is this going to be a perfect love story? It's show me what they meant to each other at that time. And, I often quote Dan Savage on our other podcast, and I thought, show me a successful short term relationship. And I think they did a great job of showing not just that two people can help each other and not end up together for the long run, but also that sometimes those relationships that kind of aren't great end up being good for you in their own way. But I think more than that romance, just the bromance between uh, Lando's character and Springsteen, when it finally got to the time that he needed help, and I can't remember if it was his line, sorry the spoilers, but I'm assuming we can spoiler,
Yes.
we believe in Springsteen here,
Yeah.
like the fact that
In
that
this
was what
office,
someone
my
needed.
office, we believe in
Yes.
Bruce Springsteen. And I'm gonna get to that. That's my next topic I wanna talk to, but I'm gonna stick with that. Ed, thoughts on our fake relationship? And I say fake as in, the composite to give us that, not only the subplot, but also as a symbol of showing why Bruce couldn't connect.
Yeah, well, I thought obviously it was a composite. The Phase, the character, I guess, is the name that they
Yeah.
came up with there. And there were a lot of like I guess Easter eggs in that relationship that we saw. There was the Christopher medal, which Bruce has been wearing, which I don't know if you ever mentioned where it came from. It came apparently, but the fact that it's in the film, I guess it may go back to this young lady that he was involved with at that point.
So if I can interrupt you,
Yeah,
Brian Hyatt asked the director, he said, I know Bruce wears a St. Christopher.
right,
Was it from someone he dated?
right.
And the director said, that's a question you can ask the next time you interview him, because I'm not asking that question. And Brian Hyatt said, I'm not asking that either. I just
I
was
think
curious if
or
you knew.
maybe the question was answered in the movie, possibly
Yeah,
because we know again Bruce was involved in this
yeah,
film
yeah,
in the making of it. So I thought that was really really cool. And
yeah,
again, I'm probably overly involved in Mr. Springsteen, and that's why
yeah,
it kind of hit me when I was watching. I said, "Oh wow, look at that!"
yeah.
But listening to everybody talk here, I'm kind of like, what was the purpose of the movie?
Well,
Because a
let
lot
me,
of us are saying there should
yeah,
have been more explanation of these songs and why they were developed. Which I mean, 90% of the population, that's probably being generous, is unfamiliar
yeah,
with most of the material in this
Not a
this
bad idea. Yeah, we'll think about that. David, any thoughts on the relationship with Faye? And you're on. There you go.
Um, yeah. Well, I agree with what everyone has said about it being a great
Yeah.
performance. I think even though Bruce was withdrawing a lot during that time, it would have been implausible for him not to have some contact with a woman. And it would have seemed, I think, out of place if we had just seen Bruce lying on his couch or whatever, or just occasionally passing through town. And there had to be some relationship that was not driven by music, a truly social relationship. And I think it served
I
that purpose.
disagree.
Yeah. Laura, how about you? And I'm going to end with you, Arlen, because I know
Okay.
you have hot romantic opinions.
Yeah,
Um, I liked it. I thought it had a purpose. What I found interesting is that the actress in person is Australian doing a Jersey accent, which I'm like,
Yes.
I mean, I'm not into acting, but I was like, that's cool. Um, I also was thinking about like when I was thinking about that relationship, I was thinking about like the kid. I don't know. I just feel like that adds a whole new layer to it, or like someone else. Is there an echo
Nope,
being
you're good.
involved? Um, because I don't know. I feel like when there is a kid involved, you do have to have a level of being like
Yeah.
careful and like when do you meet the kid of the person you're dating? So it just
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like Faye being a single mother made the situation seem more real to me, or like that, like this it made the stakes higher, and I think that was able to also like illustrate like how like how Bruce being emotionally unavailable, like just the gravity of it.
One of the things that I always think of is I realize he didn't write Jersey Girl, but, there are other songs where he talks about, drop the kids off with your mom, like after kids go to bed, right, on glory days. So often his characters will have a past. Starla, thoughts?
On the relationship itself,
Yes.
definitely to agree with Laura, that little girl, it's like true. It's like, how soon do you meet your mom's new friend, so to say, or her partner,
Yeah.
whoever at the time? But also, she's so young. How
Yeah.
is this going to impact her, even if they were together, if they weren't, for how long? To that aspect, I thought their natural acting chemistry was fantastic between Odessa Young and Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah.
And yet I was, especially when they're in that diner scene and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to move to California. Sorry, baby. I'm sorry. This is so last minute." And she puts him in his place, and rightfully so. And
Yeah.
that whole time I'm cheering for him. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if he's going to listen to it or not, or agree or disagree. He's in the wrong. You knew what you were getting into it with him, but he still hurt your feelings, and you should let that
Yeah.
be known. And it's not until the end of the movie where he's like, she was right.
And that
Yeah,
scene
you
where
know?
she is just breaking down in front of the fryer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially that, and her coworkers see her walk off all sad, and
yeah.
then they give him the evil eye, and
Yeah.
he's like, and it's like, "Get over
Yeah.
yourself." But that's part of him working through his depression and his own ego, and
Yeah.
then coming to the realization, like, "Oh, maybe I'm not the greatest in relationships."
Yeah. Jan.
Um, I thought it was very realistic. I bought the relationship. I wondered about this, however. In my mind, the most long term relationship Bruce has had until he met Patty was with one of the members of his band, Steve Van Zandt.
Yeah.
They were the real creative couple behind the scenes where there was so much interaction between them during some of the albums. And I was truly hoping that they might build up Steve's role in the movie before rather than no dialogue at all for Steve. I thought that could have been a really good tangent to include more of Steve because, in some accounts, Steve claims that it was his idea that
Yeah.
Nebraska be released as it is.
Yeah, that's everyone, the father of success. Yes, I was shocked by that, and because I interviewed the guy who played Little Steven, and I did not know not one E Street Band member got a thing of dialogue.
Mhm.
Not one.
Right,
I
right.
mean, and you would have thought you would have had at least some of that. So, Arlen, you wrap us up, and then we're going to move on to the true love story, John and Bruce.
Well, it's funny you say that. I was just about to bring that up, so I'll leave that for the next part.
Yeah,
I just want to say, doesn't everybody find it interesting if you know Bruce's catalog that one of the cuts on the river is called Little Girl, I Want to Marry You? And it's about a single mom that he's attracted to and wants to marry her, doesn't just want to go out with her. He wants to step up to the plate, So, and then if he wrote that in 79 or 80, and then this film takes place, in 81, self-fulfilling prophecy that meets a
yeah,
girl. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is, I just want to say a movie has to work on its own terms, whether you've read the book or not. You should be able, a movie can be great if you know literally nothing about Bruce Springsteen or about Nebraska. And the last thing I just want to say is this idea that you had to have a sexual relationship in the film. Um, artists, many artists, when they're knee deep in their work, they avoid relationships. They avoid sex because they're focusing on the work. And this idea, God forbid, the Beatles never allowed their girlfriends in the studio until Yoko Ono because they were working. You focus on the work, not about dating and going out. But whatever. I'm just
yeah,
saying artists can also. The movie would have been great if it had just focused on his making of Nebraska.
yeah. I do think that's a really interesting point, and I think one of the things we're going to talk about before we get out of here is, how open do we think the film is for someone, for the casual fan.
Yeah.
So Arlen, I'm going to stay with you. Um, I think that the relationship and here, um,
Yes.
yeah, the relationship with John
That's the real
and
love
him.
story.
Yeah, and I want to read something. Craig Colby could not join us tonight. He had something going on, but he sent me, and I'm going to pull this up. So go ahead, Arlen, talk, and then I'll read this afterwards.
Well, I was just going to say, not only was the real love story the relationship between Landau and Bruce, because Landau's only a handful of years older than Bruce. But from the beginning, he was not only a critic, but he was a friend, a mentor. And in the very end of the film, not spoiler alert, it's
Yeah,
very rare in popular culture to show real male friendship that actually involves physically touching. That final scene where they're sitting on the floor against the bed and they embrace and Bruce puts his hand. I'm just saying that I'm watching that going, finally, a film shows that heterosexual men can actually embrace each other physically and they're not gay. That whole
yeah,
cliche. But
mhm,
yeah, the more you know about their relationship, the more you realize that Landau was not like an Albert Grossman or any other manager. He
yeah,
was much more integral to Bruce's. And listen, he wrote the line, "I've seen the future of rock and roll, and it is Bruce Springsteen."
yeah,
And he helped make that dream come true.
yeah. I know
Yeah.
that Mike Appel's book kind of painted him as the same thing as Colonel Parker, and
Really? He does that?
yeah, yeah, he does. And in Mike Appel's book, he pushed Grossman
Wow, that's
and
hard.
Yeah, that's hard. All right, I'm gonna let the rest of you guys talk, but Craig Colby sent this. I can't make it tomorrow night. I'm triple booked. Sorry, brother. I did just see the movie though. One scene destroyed me. When John said, "Don't do anything until you hear from me," I broke. As you may recall from All Caps, which is a book he wrote, my best friend took his life 20 years ago. I would have done anything to have a phone call like that. That I thought was a very powerful scene.
Yep.
The idea that, and I know that the lady, Meryl Streep's daughter, who's in the film, um, fact check, who is that? I'm gonna see if, yeah, I don't know if you guys have been noticing at the bottom, the program will put up facts routinely. She didn't. That's she didn't have a lot to do, but I think she, obviously, her acting pretty, is pretty strong. And I thought her showing, John being able to express his concern as Bruce as a person as well as an artist. So it's pretty good. Um, yeah, Ed, how about you? The John and Bruce storyline.
Yeah, I think that's the relationship that is the heart of the movie, obviously. So that's really what the film. Point I was trying to get together. What's the point of the movie? Was it really about making an obscure album that very few people know about, or was it about the struggle that Bruce was going through, and that relationship with John Landau, his friend, his mentor, his collaborator that helped pull him through that.
Yeah.
And I think that again, I think that the movie is a little. I think what was it about? What was the purpose for making the movie? I'm a little unclear, frankly, about I liked it because I'm a huge Springsteen fan. I was
Yeah.
familiar with the material. I love the album. I've enjoyed it since it first came out. But the Landau, I mean, that relationship is, as you just mentioned, there were so many powerful moments in the movie, and they were all involved the relationship between Landau and Springsteen, between Jeremy Strong and Jeremy Allen White. Those were the keys of the film,
Hmm.
and everything else I think was kind of peripheral to that.
Yeah.
Now, was it a strong enough movie to be about that? I don't know. I don't think it held together on that level. But I
Hmm.
welcome what other people think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could counterpoint on that.
Sure, Sylvan.
Um, so I think my answer actually answers both questions of how open is this to the casual fan and what is the movie about? I think the movie is about an artist suffering depression. And if you go into the movie not wanting to see a biopic of Bruce Springsteen, but seeing a movie about an artist who is having this crisis of he's gotten the success that he had dreamed of, or at least a promise of it, and oh, now what? That actually makes it a much better
That's it.
experience.
That's it. Yeah.
And I absolutely agree that that scene where he says, "Don't do anything until you hear from me," I got chills, and that was definitely one of the times that I was crying because I've shared with Jesse on our other podcast, I'm a suicide attempt survivor myself. And that just brought me back not only to times that people had said that to me, but that advice given over and over again. Don't ask someone, don't do anything ever. Just hold on for whether it's 24 hours, 30 minutes. And it just made it so visceral and real for me. And I thought the acting was absolutely superb.
Thank you for sharing that, Sylvan. I wasn't sure. I was thinking about that as you were talking, but it wasn't my place to share that story. So, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I have seen a lot of people that, under my review posting that they have been fighting depression or they'd had depression, and the movie kind of helped them and gave it was cathartic. Laura, thoughts? Just on the depression storyline and also on that relationship between John and Bruce.
Yeah, when watching it, something that like I thought about was Bruce has a lot of supportive figures in his life, and they all seem to like have a different role or like bring something to the table to help him. And I and John Landau is one of those people. And I think that that was a really powerful line, and just also acknowledging that he was that there was a point where like he could not do anything more, and like knowing like what you can do and your boundaries and being like, I love you, but like I need to delegate this to someone else because I care about you. I thought that that was a really nice way to put it, and and I think it encourages like people to see others who are in a trained position to help. So I really liked how he was like how he knew that it was the right time to pass it on, and that you can't always do everything to help everyone. And that's not always the most comforting thing to live with, but knowing when to pass it on, and that I think that's a really powerful thing as well.
Yeah, David?
Um, well, the question of what does the casual viewer bring to this? Um, Laura and I, my wife and her mom does not like Bruce's music, and I won't go into the reasons why. But one of the first things I said to she's a psychiatrist, and one of the first things I said to Laura at the end of the movie is, "Mother should show that to her residents." It's a teaching tape for people in the mental health field.
Wow, I think that's really positive. Yeah, that's a great sign. I loved County Fair is one of the songs that I really love, that isn't an everyday. And to see that scene with that, Arlen, I see you had stuff, then I'll get with you, Starlin Jam.
Me?
Yeah, please.
Oh, I just want to say, as somebody that tried to commit suicide 20 years ago, and as somebody that's been in a depression 25 years ago, let me just say that Bruce is very fortunate that both times when he was on the brink of suicide and during the Nebraska era, and then if you saw the Western Stars film, and he talks about it later, he was on the brink of suicide years later,
Yeah.
or decades later.
In his biography, he says,
Yes.
Patty says, you
So
need
what
to
I was going
go.
to say, both
Yeah.
times, first he had Landau pulling him back in, reeling him back in from that edge of the abyss. And then he had Patty reeling him back in. Both people loved Bruce and did that. In my case, and in many suicides case, I did not have that. And when you're on the brink of that abyss and life is so painful that death is an escape, if you don't have somebody working hard who loves you, pulling you back, you take that leap.
Yeah.
And
Thank you
that's
for
what I'm just
sharing
saying.
that,
Bruce is
Arlen.
very fortunate that
I
he had those people in his life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that much with yourself. I appreciate you
Hey,
both.
my life an
Yeah.
open book, man.
Yeah. Skip, you had something, and then I'll get to our other guys.
So, not I'm gonna get to the depression in a roundabout way, but we were talking about like what is the movie about, right? Like, and now obviously this whole group agrees it's a movie about depression. And I think the reason why the movie's not gonna be well received critically or so or mixed reviews, even by fans and non-fans, is because the movie doesn't really know what it's supposed to be until the end, right? Arlen said, why isn't this movie about the making of Nebraska, right? That's what the Bruce fans want. But like a casual fan, my wife had no idea what was going on with this movie. She didn't watch any trailers. She just knew it was Bruce Springsteen biopic. And then she came out, she's like, wow, that was a movie about depression, right? So I think the critics aren't gonna love it because it doesn't know what direction to take. But like for me, the 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 part, like, we're talking about the depression part that you mentioned, them lying on the floor, holding hands, listening to music, and
Listening to
then when
Sam
he
Cooke, yeah.
calls them and he says, "Don't do anything," and then the part that destroyed me was, because it's right out of the book, when he actually sits down with the therapist and all he does is cry. And that's what I did. Right?
Yeah,
Like, that's what I did in the movie theater. Like, that was it. And
yeah,
Sylvan on Facebook put it perfectly, because I'm saying, like, it's not gonna be critically acclaimed, and we don't know if is it a great movie or it's not a great movie, it doesn't matter. Like, Sylvan, you said it on Facebook, piece of art makes you feel,
Thank
and
you.
I felt all the feelings. So, whether this a good
Exactly.
movie or not a good movie, it doesn't matter. It made me feel. It
yeah.
really, like, yeah,
And
it hit me
I
hard.
also go ahead, Jan. Go ahead and say something. Share.
Oh, um, Skip just made that point. Oh my gosh, when you move from the scene between John Landau and Bruce next to each other with Sam Cooke's Last Mile of the Way playing in the background, and then Bruce is sitting there with that therapist, and Bruce fans know that at that moment, Bruce is thinking, I'd like to have a real home. I'd like to have a wife. I'd like to have a family. And I have none of those things. And he just starts crying. That's when it did it for me. That made the entire movie worth it for me to get to that point. And I realized that the movie I went in expecting to see was not the movie I got. But in a way, kind of like the album Nebraska, it was slow, it was deliberate, it is happy to be what it is, and we can accept it or not accept it, but we're going to see it on its own terms and deal with it in whatever way. But I am proud of this movie. And as we talk about it as a group, when we get to that climax with John and Bruce and then with the therapist, everything came loose in me at the same time too.
Yeah,
It was that powerful,
yeah.
that powerful.
Starla.
I add something.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Arlen. Then I want to hear Starla.
I
She
just want
hasn't
to
got
say
done.
a great work of art doesn't have to be about one thing. A truly great work of art is multidimensional. I
Yeah,
mean, think about Citizen Kane just as one example. It's about more than just a guy that runs a newspaper business.
yeah,
So right away, and also I think a testament to the fact that it is a great film is look at the variety of discussion we've had tonight. We've touched on masculine affection, suicide, depression, music, the music business, the relationship between art and commerce. Those are grand themes. And then you get the love story and the single mom and I
yeah.
can't commit. So, I mean, come on, give
You
the
know,
film.
and
Yeah,
then Starla, your turn. But what I like, one of the little bitty scenes is seeing him in the notebook with a pen, and when he scratched out and says "I," made it the first person. That was
exactly.
so powerful. Go ahead, Starla, please.
Just to go off that point, the very when he's crossing out the lyrics and replacing the story of him, another man, he's inserting himself directly into it because he's realizing that those are the very same emotions he's dealing with. He's watching, you know, all the other things that have happened to him and really just channeling them. But in terms of his relationship with John Landau, I going into this movie, I was already drawn in because it's a movie about Bruce Springsteen, but it also features Jeremy Strong, who I'm a very big fan of as well, and his acting
Great
and his
actor.
performances, especially within the last few years. So I was like, okay, I already know he's going to bring this. He himself, Jeremy Strong, is going to bring an emotional performance into it, and I don't think, failed at all in that regard. And
Yeah,
I agree that healthy, positive, masculine affection towards the end of the film, I thought that was one of the more touching scenes. That was like, okay, you can really tell how John Landau in this moment is his only guy in his corner. Yeah, he has his girl temporarily. He's got his parents, but he has his own struggles with them, and they're all the way across the country. The only person that's in his, life consistently enough is John. And even though John has the stressors of the the record label onto him and the demands of Bruce and the appearances of Bruce and when he's going to show new music or not. And then you have your artist so depressed that he can barely think about himself at all, let alone doing something for the record label. He's also battling that stress, and he's not just some producer or some manager. He's his friend. And like Laura mentioned, he cares so much that he's like, you need to get somebody else involved because I care about you too much to see yourself fail. And that's not a healthy place for me to be in as your friend to guide you. It's like you need professional help. And he listens because he cares about his friend as well. And he sees how much he cares about him. And I agree that that healthy masculine relationship, I think, is fantastic and beautiful. But also, on the contrary, I wish there had been more of that, especially seeing his relationship, if it had been shown, if it, met with the storyline, his relationship with Clarence Clemens. Like we mentioned earlier, no dialogue from any of the band. We got a couple close-ups in that beginning performance, but that's it. And I understand it's not about the band. You see them
Yeah.
rehearsing, a couple times too later in the film. But you would think that that relationship would still find a way to weave itself in and prove to that matter that affection can be appropriate with your male friends. And in fact, it's encouraged and sometimes needed.
Yeah. Um, I thought that the scenes also that stood out were John, and I'm going to say argue, but just the discussion with the record executives. That was it. It was just really funny because, like, yeah, no, this is what we're doing, and they're looking like, what? Um, and so, the guy who played the president of the CBS. I know him from Numbers and all the other
David
stuff.
David
Yeah, David
Krumholtz.
Chris. Yeah, he was really nice on that. Yeah. So Jan, you had something?
I just wanted to tie into what you just said. There are touches of humor that are wonderful. That meeting with the CBS head was that Yetnikoff as far as real life goes, but whoever it was, it is so funny as John Landau keeps staring at him as he is processing the album that he is receiving from Bruce, and he cuts him off and goes, "Okay, I've heard it. I've heard all of this. What are we going to do with it?" And then also the really funny running gag with the cassette where people would say, Where's the cover? Where's the
Yeah.
cover?"
Yeah. I giggled every time that happened. In fact, when I gave my ratings, I did 9 out of 10 missing cassette covers. Um,
Can I
yeah,
add one more
one.
thing?
Go ahead, Arlen.
The other thing is you got to remember Bruce earned that autonomy from the record company ever since Born to Run answered all claims made about him. First,
Yeah,
he had to be the new Dylan. Then he had to come up with a great hit single. He came up with Born to Run. Then he had to follow Born to Run, and he came up with Darkness. And then he had to follow that, and he came up with The River. So by the time of Nebraska, Bruce had earned, just like Bob Dylan, I would think, at
yeah.
Columbia Records, the idea that whatever he wants out is what they're putting out.
Yeah.
And, I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, I'm glad you did. One of the things in this Rolling Stone interview, Scott Cooper said that, the whole idea was the band couldn't get this and couldn't get the songs. Uh and later Bruce has said, like in an interview, I feel a little bad because it weren't that bad, right? They just weren't what I wanted to hear at the time. And so that's why he ended the film with the band doing Atlantic City, to show they did get it. They ultimately did get it in versioning
I
it. So
disagree.
you disagree? Tell me, Arlen.
Well, I'll just tell you why. Since I just an hour ago listened to the Electric Nebraska cuts, the
Yeah,
outtakes are a whole different story. But the
yeah,
Electric Nebraska versions, they sound like music being forced on acoustic songs that were meant to be acoustic, meaning that the songs did not develop as Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. They did
yeah,
not develop as songs created by a band. They came across literally as what they were. Here's an acoustic demo, and now just throw some instruments. I thought the arrangements, whoever was arranging, Bruce himself, the arrangements were terrible. They were flaccid. They didn't really add anything. Many of them weren't really full band workouts.
Yeah, there were a lot of trios.
They were missing people. My point is, they failed as band songs because they weren't created as band songs.
Right.
They felt very manipulated. And to Bruce's credit as an artist, he sensed that, like I compare it to an artist that makes a rough sketch that has life and beauty. And sometimes when they bring it to finish, they overwork it and it loses that spontaneous
That
burst of
sketch would have been enough.
and many artists like Picasso will say that as they get older, they're trying to paint like children, where they're unself-conscious, where they're putting marks and images down purely aesthetically. So
Yeah.
all I'm saying is that those songs, whether Bruce realized it or not, were destined to be acoustic songs. And the way he decided to add the band came across as, in a sense, manipulative. It
Yeah.
felt like the band was just added,
Yeah.
not part of the creative evolution of these songs.
Yeah. And Starling, I'm gonna get with you, but the I think like the purpose of this box set is to see the creative process, right? That's what we're
Absolutely.
interested in. Yeah, go ahead, Starla.
I agree with Arlen in the sense that it was not a culminative art. It was not a culminative project. The previous records with the E Street Band, they worked together and they had their own distinct sounds and their dynamics, and that's what made the previous music flow and really connect with the band and also
Yeah.
the audience. But when Bruce steps out of that and he's really channeling some other darker things and also just recording it on his own, that itself is his own art. By bringing it into the record label and the studio, it does feel like it's forced to a degree. And then being a fan and knowing that he has released this box set, to me, I find it a bit humorous after watching the movie because you see how it's forced and he's like, no, I want to keep it stripped down, I want to keep the isolation vocals. This guitar even is messing it up. He's so meticulous because he knows that this is his own art and it wasn't created together. And then when I agree, I listened to the box sets and I don't dislike it. I'm glad that he's releasing these outtakes, especially those are its own separate
Yeah.
critique, I'd say. But the Electric Nebraska as well, listening to it now, it's like, yeah, I see why that didn't work out, and why he didn't
Yeah.
also just give into it and let the records run with it, because it also probably would have hurt him, but also him as an artist, it was hurting his creative motion.
Yeah.
And listening to it now, many, many years since Nebraska has come out, he said it then, it just needs to sit. People need to listen to it and take it for what it is. No tours, no press, no
Yeah.
interviews. It doesn't need all that because it stands as its own, as an art. And I think I'd like to hope that, if this movie, sets for a couple years and kind of see if they make any other ones, if not about Bruce Springsteen in general, how that, ages. I think it
Yeah.
also considered itself as a piece of art, but it does kind of show the creative process with also his just his depression and how he deals with that, but also how he, as an artist, deals with being an artist. And a lot of that does come from your
Yeah.
emotions and how you can deal with yourself.
You guys talked about some of the comedy. I think Mark Marone was funny as Chuck Clifton, you're right, to the things. So I think you guys have hit on some really good points about, you know, you're going into this with an expectation. I've told the story multiple times that when I discovered the Beach Boys back in 77, I'm buying every Beach Boy album and 8-track I can find. That's how old I am. And when I got to Pet Sounds, I would, what the hell is this? And it was not anything I knew. And it took me a while. So I wonder if, um, and, you know, part of the reason why I had a good friend that a girlfriend went to him and said, why every time do you go to a movie, you and your best friend just sit there and debate the whole night about what was good, what was bad? That's irritating." And he's like, "No, that's part of the fun." So I think all of us debating on things that work
It's
or not
called
is part of the
critiquing a work of art.
it is, and that doesn't mean you don't love it,
Well, of
right?
course, that's what I
Exa-
mean. It's
yeah,
that's it's called discussion.
Yeah.
You know, the whole point of these social forums is to discuss.
Yeah.
Tell us
I
why
mean,
you love something, why you don't love something, what you think works, what you think doesn't work. Listen, maybe
it's
because I went to art school, I know what it's like to have a work of art discussed, but that's what we're here for.
yeah, and I think that's the whole point is for you to look at it a different way because someone else brings something. So Skip, you're the other very successful podcast host.
Well, I don't know how you define success, but
Yeah, do you have a topic for the team to discuss? Do you have a question for the group?
um, well, I had a lot of notes that I wrote down. Um, the actors' performances, like they were so strong, right? Obviously, Jeremy Allen White is amazing, and um, Jeremy Strong is fantastic. But like, I had so much trouble just not looking at Jeremy Allen White and being like, "That's Carmine from The Bear," right? Like, he's so like I associate him so much in his other character that I just had a hard time. And then the same thing with Jeremy Strong. I was like, Kendall Roy from Succession. That's him. He's wearing weird glasses. So, but like they did so well that they were able to like after 5 minutes, I was like, okay, no, I mean, I'm completely off. They've got me. And I thought they really, really did great, so
Yeah,
but it's tough, when you're an actor, like when you're associated with these big hit television shows like Succession, The Bear, and Shameless he was in, like
yeah,
that's tough.
yeah. Anyone else got a topic we want to talk about? Because I can keep going, but I want to give everyone else a chance. Laura, and then I'll get with you, Starla.
Um, I have a question if anyone wants to answer it. I mean, so at the end, when he is sitting on his father's lap, is I don't how did you interpret it as literal or like a figment of his imagination? Because I was talking to someone about it and my first thing I was thinking, "Oh, it's part of his like imagination." And I thought specifically about like My Father's House, the Broadway version, but someone else was like, "Oh, I took it as literal." And I mean, I guess that's the beauty of art when you can like have different interpretations of it, but I was just wondering how others interpreted that.
Can I answer
But
So
that?
on Broadway, he talks about that story, right? He talks about the
yeah,
meeting
that
Yeah.
with his father?
yeah,
Yeah, but he doesn't
when
go into
he
And
detail
it
about sitting
kind
on his lap,
yeah,
I guess,
yeah, but
right?
when yeah, right in just a minute, Arlen. Yeah, absolutely. I know they moved the timeline. This was when he was expecting their first. Him and Patty were expecting their first child, and he tells the story. He came, and they have that exact same discussion. And I get why dramatic reasons you put that over closer to give you a kind of button at the ending. But yes, that conversation did happen just much later. Arlen.
I just want to say that in Bruce's biography and wherever he's told that story, he has never mentioned sitting on the father's lap. But while this movie was being made, or maybe right after it was done, it was reported somewhere where they said even diehard Bruce aficionados are going to learn things about this period in Bruce's life that they did not know before. And since Bruce was on set, the idea of him sitting on his father's lap might have been a real part of that story that Bruce has never shared before. But
Could
because
be.
they're making a movie, he might have said to Scott Cooper, when my father came over that day, he wanted me to sit on his lap. So
Hmm.
what did I do? I sat on his lap.
Yeah,
So all I'm saying is until we interview Bruce about that, there's a good
yeah,
chance that might have been an anecdote he added for the film.
yeah. So we have a new person joining us, McCuber. Hi, yeah. So you want to unmute and say hi? They keep coming in and out. All right, when you're ready, just hit me. I'd love to do. Um, Yeah, I liked that dramatic ending. How about everyone else? Did it bother you the timeline messed up? Anyone? Oh, Skip.
It's not.
It's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, "What do you mean 10 months later? Isn't it much longer?" If he
Okay.
was touring on Born in the USA, it was June '84, even if it was the first show. So
Yeah.
I that
It took
first
you out
first
of
thing
it
that
a
popped
little
into my
bit.
head, I was like, "How is
But
that
it's only if
possible?"
you're a
But
Bruce fan would you know that. So to the average
exactly.
moviegoer, it made
Yeah.
dramatic sense. The fact that they screwed with the timeline is
Yeah.
an artistic decision that worked for the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I chalked it up to. I was
Yeah.
like, "I'm not gonna
Starla?
get caught up in that," you know?
Yeah, I'm gonna I remember when we watched Blinded for the Light and the guy quoted the river and you're like, he didn't have the river
Right.
in either of the cassettes he gave. So Starlift, what you got for us?
Just in terms of the timeline jump, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it furthers the plot, it wraps it up very nicely. That's kind of how I knew. I was like, oh yeah, the movie's almost over. There's 5 minutes left. Um, but aside from that, when I watched it the second time, I did find myself a little confused, and I could be off on his outfit. But is he not wearing the same flannel shirt from the beginning concert? I could be off. But to me, that for a millisecond, I was like, he's 32 now. He previously, way before he made Nebraska, he just got done with the River Tour. He's flying high off of that. And I think my only critique with that is that they should have just dressed him a little differently. Because I think to a viewer who also doesn't know this is about Bruce Springsteen or just knows the name or knows even if you advertise it as an artist who's dealing with depression and how he may or
Yeah.
may not just conquer that, by having him dress up in that same flannel, I'm like, huh? And then
Yeah,
it's not until he's speaking with his dad, he's like, I'm 32. I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
he
you
does
know,
not look like the Bruce from the headband and
right. It's
everything
not the
else. Yeah.
typical Born in the
Yeah.
USA look. Yeah.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
again, that's
And I didn't grasp that at that point. Right, he had been with Patty at that point. That didn't come across to me unless I was knowing the years,
Yeah, and
directly
and
off the
and no,
the
he
screen.
wasn't with Patty at that time because
Mhm.
they didn't become. I mean, he had met her, but
It was
they
during
didn't.
the tour.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was during the Tunnel of Love
Mhm.
after. Um, yeah, I guess right. Yeah, because Niels had joined and Patty during Born in the USA, right?
but
That's correct.
Yeah.
again, this is all esoteric Bruce
Yes, I
knowledge.
understand.
The
Yes.
average moviegoer doesn't
Right.
care, and he doesn't need to care. The idea that he reunites with his father years later is all that matters. Come on.
Yeah. No. No. We just said. Um, one of the things. Um, I thought this was hilarious. Someone posted on Facebook there was one huge inaccuracy, and someone quoted that Bruce can't stand mustard on his hot dogs.
Ah,
He has said that. And there was a whole forum and we're like, look, he was being nice to the little girl. What was he supposed to say? No, mustard is horrible, little girl. Get out of here.
how can you not like mustard on a hot dog?
Yes,
Yeah, but
absolutely.
why do they bring up mustard and ketchup at all in that scene? What was the
Well, because she had
why even
said,
bring
I
it
had
up
a
then?
hot dog. And yeah, and then,
Yeah.
what do you like on your hot dog? So that's
Yeah.
nice.
It was a
Um,
way for him to bond with the little girl, right?
yes, absolutely. Yes, Laura. Yep, you're muted.
Okay, I wasn't gonna bring this up, but this seems like a good opportunity to do so. I was the one who posted that.
Go ahead, say
I,
again.
I was the one who posted that complaint about the mustard. And okay, that was supposed to be lighthearted. But I guess
Everything too
when
is lighthearted. Come on.
yeah, I guess when like stuff reaches an audience, people are gonna like interpret things and like
Okay.
not see your intent through. Like I wasn't expecting that kind of reach honestly, and that was to be funny, and the fact that I just found it funny. I didn't think that it like ruined the film or
I
anything.
thought it was
Not
And
funny.
everybody took it that way. They
oh,
took
there
it took
there
it.
were some people who were like they were
Okay.
just
Thank you.
Welcome to
I don't
social
know.
media. Well,
I thought
welcome
it was
to
funny.
social
I
media
thought it
where
was
no good deed goes unpunished. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know. I just found it
They're
funny. And then the
haters of
32
everything.
part. And then someone made a comment about like Pitt at the River Tour, if that was often a thing at the River Tour about having a pit. Like someone questioned that.
No, there were chairs in those days. There were no pits.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and
Mhm.
yet there are people in the pit. So like I don't know. I yeah, I notice those details because I naturally notice details. I am very into small details. Like you can ask my father. Like I've
Mhm.
been called pedantic on report cards, but like I don't know. I even then like I like to like find them for fun, not to be like they ruined
Sure.
it. But like the Snoopy binder thing was cool though.
Yeah, it was.
But you
Uh,
had the clip ready. You had the clip ready.
yeah.
I did, but I also
Hmm.
saw it in September, so I was just waiting for weeks to be like, when can I show the receipts?
That's good.
First
All
of all,
right. Go ahead. Let's go around the table. Arlen, any final thoughts before I get you? By the way, yeah, go ahead.
one bone that they did throw to us diehard fans that know about the stuff is in the beginning of the film when Landau's in the lobby of CBS and first meets the business guy. He goes, the business guy says to him, John, what do you got for me? An album with the outtakes? Did you notice he said?
He said Bruce
And
will
he says,
never put out the
since
other.
I am a master of those outtakes, I thought, wow, they actually threw that in, which was a bone to us diehard fans that have always
Yes.
been into Bruce's outtakes.
Hmm. Yes. Very nice. How about you, Laura? Any final thoughts?
Um, I really liked it. I always like an excuse to like have a good experience and make something fun. So if it's related to Bruce, it's likely fun. So I'm really glad about it that it was released, and I like how I don't think it follows the typical biopic in the sense of like it's not a highlight reel, which I think makes it really intimate and special and like what you normally don't see. Like people like to post like the glamour of their lives, and that's normally what is more palatable to film about. But I think that this makes it really like raw and special, and I look forward to seeing it again.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Starla?
Overall, I enjoyed watching it, and just what it gave to the audience in general for Bruce fans and people who aren't as familiar alike. I thought that itself was very palatable. Um, the two times that I saw it, because I live in New Mexico, so it's not like it's a super concentrated populations in parts of the state. Both times I saw it, I was the only one in the theater, so it made for a very nice, like, oh, it's I can laugh a little bit, a little harder, or if I did feel a little sad, or
Yeah.
whatever. I had that freedom, but that also broke my heart a little bit because I was so passionate about this film and watching it and reading the book previously and just being a fan. I was like, that's so sad. But also, I that also shows, how it hasn't done the best at the box office, but that's not for one factor or another. I think it's multiple, being just not enough people going to the movies these days, especially post COVID. I think it's a dying art to a degree in some places. And also, who's the target audience, with this? I happen to be considered a younger Bruce Springsteen fan, but that doesn't mean that it can't be enjoyed by everyone.
Yeah.
Boomers, Gen X, millennials, or Gen Z. It's for a film for everybody that somebody can take a different part from it and learn something. But I think with that turnout as well, maybe perhaps had this film been made 20 years ago, let's say, it might have had a bigger draw. But I still think it deserves that draw and deserves people to go see it. And that's why I think give it 10 years, or less, people will come to realize that, oh, this works well on its own. And here are some critiques from it as well, that we're
Yeah.
not getting now.
I was saying it I think it was fourth and it kind of did what they thought it would do,
Hmm.
a little bit on the lower end of that. Yeah, I think
Well,
you
and I
hope.
think there's a
Go ahead.
comparison to, as you mentioned, the Bob Dylan movie that came out last year or the
Yeah.
year before. That had a big turnout, but for a couple different reasons, I think. look at the leading man, Timothy Chalamet. He's in everything, and you know, people, if you love him or you hate him, you're gonna go watch this movie he's in probably. So he naturally is gonna be a draw. No shade to Jeremy Allen White. He has his own, you know, accolades and his abilities, and he deserves that draw. But I think when you pair it with different leading men, even though it's a music, you know, a biopic
Yeah.
about a musician, Bob Dylan does have that slightly further reach. If there was no Bob Dylan, there wouldn't be a lot of musicians, including Springsteen. You could
I
argue.
yeah, I also think that obviously I had nothing to do with this, but um, a complete unknown came during the holiday season,
Mm,
and this was in the middle of spooky season. You know,
yeah,
with horror films. Jan, final thoughts.
Um, I think this film's going to age very, very well. I
I think
really
so
do.
too.
Um, I was lucky enough to see Bruce and the band on the river tour 3 different times. It was so joyous and it was so emotional, and like his best concerts, you're on a roller coaster during the show because of a selection of the songs and the arrangement of when the songs fit into the set list. I was struck by the fact that a man who brought me so much joy at that point in my life was dealing with this behind the scenes. And that just became more moving the more the movie moved along. It really did.
Yeah, David.
Well, I really enjoyed the movie and listening to all of you. I think I may want to see it a second time. I don't know how many times Laura will be up to by that point, but yeah, I'd like to see it again. And certainly some of the scenes that everybody's brought up tonight, I would like to see them again.
Yeah,
Can I
I
have one final
absolutely.
thought?
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to say that this was only one slice of Bruce's life. If you know about Bruce's life, his entire story is the rock and roll story of all time. He's the rock and roll promise delivered. You know, from his young life growing up, you know, dealing with the 60s and then the 70s and how he became who he became. It is the greatest story never filmed. The Bruce Springsteen story would be the greatest rock biography if they ever made it. But
Yeah,
was just one little slice of, you know, a great man's life.
absolutely. Yeah. Skip, have you had your final thoughts?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for getting all of us together. I really thought it was a great discussion. I loved hearing
This
from
has been a
everybody.
blast.
Like
I know,
Yeah.
yeah,
thought
I'm thinking.
provoking things I hadn't considered, like just the way of looking at the movie in a different way. Um, I think as you know, I really like the movie. I think I'll go see it again. And it's interesting because when I read the book during the summer, my first impression was like, how are they going to make a movie out of this book? Look, I don't know if there's any sports fans here, but like I had the same exact feeling when I read the book Moneyball. I don't know if anybody's ever read that book or seen the movie, baseball movie, but like I read that book and I'm like, how are they going to make a movie out of this? Like when I heard they're making
Yeah,
a movie, it's impossible. It's this geek baseball book about stats,
yeah.
like it doesn't
The
translate.
greatness of
Next thing
Aaron
you know,
Sp
Brad
yeah,
Pitt's in it.
yeah. Greatness of
So
Aaron
I had the
Sorkin.
same feeling. Yeah, I had the same feeling with this book. I'm like, how are they going to do it? And then they did it. Of course they did, right? So I think the movie's there for us to enjoy, and like I hope everybody likes it as much as I did.
God, can
Good.
I just add a comment to what you just said there?
Absolutely.
You know, making a movie about the actual creation of artwork, whether it's physical painting, sculpture, writing, music, is very, very difficult because it is a very
Mhm.
lonely thought process and doing painstaking detail. But look at the Beatles Get Back, the 7 hour documentary. It showed us in
Yeah.
real time how a song is created. That's very, very rare. So when I read the Nebraska book and I knew they were going to make a movie, I'm like, how are they going to make a movie about Bruce sitting in his bedroom, strumming his guitar and coming up with these songs? And yet, of course, they did.
Yeah,
And like I said, it's very difficult. It's
yeah,
easier to make a movie about an artist's life than about their actual creation of the work. which is
Yeah.
usually not cinematic material.
You know, Ed, have you final thoughts? I'm trying
Yeah,
to make
sure.
sure I didn't miss anyone.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
um, they've been after Bruce to let them make a movie about him for a long time, you know. And it's interesting that this is the one that he let go forward because
Yeah.
it's not a big biopic. It's not a self glorification of himself or his genius, or it's a slice of a very significant point of his life where he was going through a lot of trouble, and but it's a message. There's a reason why it took a lot of guts, I think, to put this out because he's showing himself at what maybe his weakest point. But in some ways, looking back on it, he says this is his favorite album, his most creative point at the same time. So he's telling us a story about how you recover from that, how you come back from depression and thinking about killing yourself, and at the same time, how you create great art.
Yeah.
And it's not about Nebraska, because again, we're a very distinct group of people that care about that album and the songs and have heard about them before. um, and I think others have mentioned this. I think this movie has I think a lot of Bruce's songs, they serve a different purpose later on, like
Yes.
My City of Ruins, was not written about 9/11, and now everybody thinks about it for that purpose. This movie is going to be, I think, helpful for people that are going through some shit,
I think
that
so
are having
too.
a tough time. And I
Yeah.
think I don't know. I mean, we don't know this because it could be that kind of a thing. I think it serves. It was very. We enjoyed seeing it. It was made for us, maybe on one level, but I think Bruce, as the great artist that he is, maybe has a sense that there's something deeper in here that'll have legs, and that'll mean more down the road, like much of his music does. And I
Can I
think
just
that's
add? I don't think the movie would have been made if it wasn't for the fact that Nebraska, the album, has gained so much respect over the decades. People
Yeah.
forget when Bruce released it, it got mixed reviews. It wasn't universally embraced as the classic it is now. It was the start of the alt country movement. So, you know what I'm saying? The fact that Warren Zanes wrote a book about it validated it as a great work of art. And that's how come the movie was, I think, made, was because of the stature that
Yeah.
the Nebraska album has.
Um, self-serving. Yeah, I just did an interview with Warren Zanes, and he talks about how he was involved in the making of the film. It tells some really good insights on that. The other thing, my final thoughts was I was at a comic book, pop culture convention a few years ago, and John Cusack was there, and I stood in line. I got his signature. A friend of mine had done a caricature of him as Brian Wilson for Love and Mercy, another really great film that showed creative. And I was telling him how much I loved it, and he said I listened to the Pet Sounds tape, and that was all the research I needed. And he said Brian was happy with the film, and that was enough for me. And I think Bruce has said vo- multiple times he loves the film. His sister, who gets neither sister is mentioned, right? Hardly, uh, said this is a gift to our family. So I think this is um, art. It unfortunately we treat art, and I say we, society treats art as football sporting events. You look at the box office, like how was it successful or not. And the reality is, and I'm going to go back to how Skip and Sylvan started this off. If a film can move you, if a song can move you, if a book or a piece of art can move you, then it's a success. Thank you guys. This was amazing. I hope everyone had fun. I'm just grinning ear to ear. This was so much fun. We're going to have to do it again.
Absolutely.
So, thank you guys. I appreciate all. And you're all welcome back on the podcast anytime. I love you. You guys have a great night. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
Jesse.
JC.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye, Jess.
Bye. Thanks for spending time with me today, sharing in the music and the memories that makes this journey so special. If Bruce has touched your life in some way, I'd be honored to help you tell that story. Your voice matters. Your experience matters. And this podcast is here because of fans like you. So please leave a review wherever you get your podcast. Tell a friend or drop me a note at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. And maybe together we'll walk in the sun on a future episode. Until then, keep the fire burning and remember, this train carries saints and sinners, losers and winners. There's always room here for your Springsteen story. Never stop believing in the magic of the music.